name is Tami Gold. I've been in the Department of Film and Media for about 38 years, taught many different classes, mostly production. In fact, I started the whole production sequence in 1988. We brought cameras into the classroom. We purchased the first editing system, which was tape to tape or cassette to cassette. It really went back that far. All this time, we were advancing the understanding of the importance of our students being media literate. What do I mean by media literate? When you learn how to use cameras and you learn how to edit, it builds your consciousness to read the media that we're exposed to all the time. You might not be a filmmaker. You might not end up working at a TV station or an independent filmmaker, but what you could bring to one's individual life and reading the world in which we live is the understanding of media that we are consuming all the time. And then we developed over many years, we built the graduate program. Again, everything sits on one foundation, and that's social justice. Everything we bring, even in our analytical courses, especially in media studies, we bring it in the formation that everything sits on context, socialization, and justice. And sometimes we don't find justice in what we're doing. And then we have to call out what that's about. And that's all about media literacy. We need that more now than ever. With the internet, with fake news, with the mean viciousness that goes on in media, in social media. We now have a Department of Journalism, which is spectacular. What could be a better home than media and film studies? So we have journalism, and it's grown tremendously. It's the understanding of journalism, again, sitting on that framework of what is justice. Right now I'm making a film, it's called Sex Work, It's Just a Job. And it's really about the movement to decriminalize sex work, and that there is a movement, and the movement is in the United States and all over the world. We focus in this film on New York City, just this area. And there's no individual character. It's an ensemble of 10 people who really bring you into understanding their reasons for becoming sex workers. And some of them are current sex workers and some of them are former sex workers. And so they share their experience. And then we break down different things like policies and what does it mean to criminalize and what does it mean just in terms of so many impacts on people's lives. So that's why we call it It's Just a Job, because it is just a job. That's a film. It's just about finished, and it's not character driven. It's not going to make you cry, but it's going to make you understand what is sex work, the impact of stigma, how does stigma reinforce policing, and how policing reinforces stigma. So that's what I'm doing now. And now over the years I've done many things about, there's a theme definitely about film. I mean, there's a theme in my work, yes, about film, but there's a theme in my work that's definitely about policing and about the impact of policing, and that policing needs to be rethought of, and we need to really rethink what does safety mean, and where is safety and where is policy. Every Mother's Son is a film that I made with Kelly Anderson, and we follow 3 mothers, and 3 mothers whose sons were killed by law enforcement in New York City. The 3 mothers come together as a united front, and they try to build with other mothers a movement of parents and mothers to fight against police brutality. Every Mother's Son is the title. Then another film, Out at Work, which is about working class issues within lesbian and gay circles. There's a hate crime that I did with David Palvosky, who's the one who runs Film and Media Studies. And David and I did this piece called Puzzles, when hate came to town. And that's about a hate crime in terms of an attack in a gay bar in New Bedford, Massachusetts. So there's a range of work. Sometimes I say, is my work really grounded in issues around LGBTQ, or is my work really about policing? I think there's a kind of connection between the two. So this gives you a sense of some of the films I made and will continue making even though I'm graduating from Hunter College. For family reasons, I went to high school in Cuba for a short time and did some education there. In that experience as a very young person, I met filmmakers and I met nonfiction filmmakers. And it was at this very kind of celebratory moment of a socialist revolution. And I met Santiago Alvarez, and he's the father of cinema in Cuba. And I learned kind of very early on about the magic of cinema, about the radicalness, about the urgency. And there's a whole movement that came out of that period of filmmakers, and it's about urgent filmmaking. And it's about, we're at this pivotal point of justice. We just have to push and stop the war in Vietnam, and we just have to push to have social justice and anti-racism and all that. So I had that experience very young, like 19, 20 years old. And then I returned to the United States, and I then went back to Latin America, and I hitchhiked all through Latin America with a still camera. And I took a lot of photographs that reflect a lot of beauty, hope, and terrible devastation and poverty. So it was at that point that I joined what's called Third World Newsreel, but today it was then Newsreel. And I became a member of Newsreel, and I made my first film there, which is called My Country Occupied. And it's about Guatemala and the overthrow of a fairly elected president, Arbenz, who was overthrown by the United States because he believed in agrarian reform. So it was really at that point where filmmaking and my political growth grew like this. There was no separation. The film I did, Signed, Sealed, and Delivered, and it's about the postal struggle in the post office. And we made a film, and it had a lot of visibility. And then from that, I was able to get other jobs, resulting in an invitation to be at Hunter College for 1 year. And then they said, well, the job is now open, apply, apply. So I applied and got it. And that's how I'm here since 1988. My first film, My Country Occupied, was shot on 16 millimeter, reversal film. Therefore, you didn't work directly with a negative. We cut like this. We had hot thing to go on the splice, and you'd splice it together, put something down. It would need a little time to adhere. And that is tactile filmmaking. And you hold the film up and you see the frames. And there's something quite beautiful about it. It smells nice. It could be right around you. It's all hanging in the bins. The image is being pushed by sprocket holes. And it's about kind of what Edison taught us about this movement. And that movement is a whole bunch of images. So I feel like that was a hard thing to give up. When I went to DCTV, it was my first time doing video. It was black film or tape, and we put it on a machine, an editing machine. So we'd have a reel here of video, open reel, and then we'd have another one, and the other one is sending the stuff we shot, and the one on the right side is what we were taping it or copying it to. So that was physical editing, and I loved that. Video editing I loved because you had to be coordinated. It was very physical. You like the shot, you take a grease pencil right there, you go back, you rewind it back 3 times, then when it's going and you see the grease pencil, you go, and it's edited. So I actually loved that. That was much more my style. And then things moved to digital. And the digital process was really very slow for me. I'm definitely somebody who pushes against technology and technological, quote, advances, unquote. I push against it. I wanted to be the last person on the planet Earth to ever have email. I lost that one. So I had to give up editing. And yes, I did edit before this period. And it doesn't mean I'm not editing, it just means I'm not in control. And yeah, that's hard. I feel like I've had to give up a lot of control with new technology. I've taught many production classes, and I've been teaching one analytical class. It's called LGBTQ, Media Studies. Its subtext, which I always thought the title should be, is learning about a liberation movement through nonfiction film, because that's what we teach. We teach the evolution of the discrimination, the homophobia, the eclipse of media images of queer people, all to the place of where we sit today. What do I do in the class? I take a different approach. My approach is everything analytical is grounded in art. Everything has to be artistic. And what we do is, first and foremost, the students learn what is a zine and how a zine, coming from the word magazine, how they are the authors, the writers, the illustrators of their own zine. And it could be their own journey with their own queerness and evolution, and some use the zine to come out of closets, of different closets. The zine is a creative act. It is not graded like a paper. All the papers feed in to the zine at the end of the semester. So for me, to teach anything that's analytical, I have to see that in the creative vein as well. The other things I do in the class is we look at different films. And in the films, there's three things we have to think about. Who is that filmmaker telling the story? When is the film done? And how long ago is the topic of the film? And then we have to kind of deconstruct, how does homophobia live within all the media that people are exposed to? And again, this goes back to media literacy. The students in my classes don't understand the impact of AIDS on my generation and on some of the generations following me and before me. I go home with such a heavy heart when I hear the students say, but I thought AIDS was kind of like the flu and you just take some medication, and that we have to then tease apart. Why do they think that? How did that happen? And where was their high school when it came to teaching? Even health studies. Why is that not included in many, many high schools? I don't know. So you have to kind of jump backwards and say, how do I bring this history to the foreground? The students in 24, 25 have such a level of sophistication. They can watch something and talk about the omission of queerness in its fullness, and also the impact of white supremacy on representation. So I learned from my students, and I hope, I really hope, and I believe Film and Media Studies will keep a course that's about LGBTQ in media.